Hello, I'm Keith Spence of Earth Mother Network, and I'm here with Telegi grandmother Gail Thomas, and she wants to talk about the. What are you going to talk about? Go ahead and let us know.
Well, I'm going to talk about the launching of Union of Nations and the mission that Shonda has in mind, and the idea that we can unite as people more easily by reaching back to the ancient ones and the original instructions that we came in with. Because if we reach all the way back to the beginning of this wave of humans, that's where we all share ancestors.
That's nice.
Thank you, Keith.
What are the first teachings?
The original instructions are the spiritual teachings. They are the sacred numbers and the sacred symbols that are still used in a lot of systems today. They're actually used in a lot of my Jungian specialization work and Carl Jung's work, which is empirical science in the allopathic system of psychiatry. He was an amazing influence on Western psychology, and those beginnings are from our ancestral ways of illness beginning in the spirit and treating the spirit as well as the body to maintain health and health in our lives. And so those original instructions were about being together as people, being in community and being equally valued according to our particular unique gifts that we bring in. Still in this world we come to do something, and that information is available from our soul in our dream work and in all of the Jungian individuation sessions that I do with empathyarchitects.life. And the reason this is so valuable in Union of Nations, or one of the reasons, is that we reach back before the wounding on this continent, many continents, but particular on this one, before the wounding was, before the influence of colonization and patriarchy, duality, so many differences. We truly are different, but similar. I always see the differences as I started working with the elders of many traditions as I was, you know, coming to this point in my life. I could see the similarities along the way, but I could also see the differences. So the original instructions are what many, many different nations of indigenous people on Turtle Island and around the world are calling for at this time. It's the ways that truly honored the elements, the earth, the air, the water that we all share, and we honored those with our actions, not just with words in this commerce language of English, but in our verb-based original ancient languages. There was a time, for example, when a sacred number was more valuable than the quantity. For example, a 4 was more valuable than a 9. Now it's 9 of everything, so it's quantity. But a 4 was a sacred number, and it held the numinosity and the magic that takes us into higher consciousness and in connection with all around us, the spirit of all life around us. So when we reach back to those ancient ones, we're talking about the East Coast true red race that is being eliminated in the DNA science. It's not represented. The only representation you'll notice in the DNA report is East Asian Native American, which is actually yellow race and is, I guess, anthropologists refer to it as the journey across the Bering Land Bridge, but there's not a lot of evidence for that. And there is a lot of evidence for misunderstandings for Eurocentric um, translations of anthropology and archaeology throughout history. And while we're happy to have as much information as we do, there are many sites that are being discovered for the first time with the laser technology. This is one of the good things to come out of this industrial revolution, even though it has trashed our air and our water and our earth. And this is the need that we're facing today, the need to change our actions with regard to the recovery of the air and the water and the earth. This is the forefront of what these original instructions can bring us to. And they are big changes. But if we reach back to the ancient ones where we are, the East Coast Red Race is actually the Paleo people, often identified as the Adena or the Hopewell culture, and in the southeast, and then as we move into the Mississippi and Ohio Valley, they're known as the mound builders, and their effigy mounds and all kinds of mounds. They're just fascinating along that river basin of the Mississippi. And I live here on the highest mountain east of the Mississippi, the oldest mountain on Turtle Island. And I find those Stone Age tools in my yard all the time. I recognize them because I had 3 grandmothers who passed those original instructions on to me. It was very difficult to do at that time. It's illegal to speak our languages or engage in any of our cultural ways until I was in college when the Religious Freedoms Act was passed in the late 70s. And this is very sad because we were supposed to assimilate. We were required by law and punished with genocide actions if we didn't assimilate. And fortunately, 2 of my grandmothers taught me the original ways. I spent most of my time with them. One was on a large farm near the farm that my mother grew up on. She was the youngest of 12 and very steeped in these ways, though not allowed to talk about them or to participate in them or to sing our songs, which were our prayers. But I was very fortunate to be able to spend time with the grandmothers that recognized my gifts and encouraged me to learn these ways and to step into these ways. And they would find ways to teach me, like my one grandmother who was still on the farm, and of course all of our parents, brothers and sisters, were grandmothers in our original ways. So we gravitated to those that we related to and those that recognized our gifts and carried the same gifts and wanted to share and teach us along the ways of our life. And so, for example, I could feel the energy when they were telling me something of these teachings. It was very different. And the one that kept me on the farm most of my very young years would be washing carrots from the garden or something beautiful from the wild foraging. And she would say, we wash them 3 times, and the 4th is when we eat them. And then in the Jungian teachings, Marie-Louise von France teaches about the symbolism in fairy tales. And fairy tales begin with once upon a time because they are relevant to all people and all times. So the symbolism that Marie-Louise von France worked with in the fairy tales is 3 are the same and the 4th is different. This is one of my favorite examples of the original teachings. And you'll see this when the numinosity arises in your life, when you're being guided by your soul to the path that you came here to be a part of. And you'll recognize other people that share your same gifts and your same path. And as we become more connected all around the world, we can relate to each other and choose where we belong more easily. We belong with people that we share commonality with. Okay, so when we reach back to the original instructions of the Paleo people on the East Coast, then we can share these teachings and they will return to us, and we will be guided by these numinosities and synchronicities that show up in our lives. Vine Deloria Jr. has a book that he wrote on his deathbed, which is very different from his other books. It's called The World We Used to Live In. And he was Plains people, so he writes primarily of the Anasazi ways, but there are a few sections, like the end of chapter 1, he talks about the difference in the Eastern Woodlands people and the way that they work with the spirit helpers and unite the lower realms, the higher realms, and the middle realm that we are on here on earth. And this is the spirituality that we came in with. So on this continent, we have the paleo archaeological sites and evidence and information. And then with the Plains people, it's the Anasazi of the Hopi, and then the Dene, and the people of the Plains. Now that makes a lot of sense when you go out foraging for food, because the food is very different here on the East Coast and on the Plains. You know, I wouldn't be able to survive with the natural native food in the Plains, but it would be pretty easy for me to do that here on my ancestral mountain. So this is what we are encouraging in Union of Nations, so that we can become one people again. We can recognize our individual ways of the nations that we are part of, and the more recent influence that has come into these designations. This is our tribal system, which was more of a clan system originally, and it was based on cultural ways. So we can look back for these influences in our genetics and in our family lines, in our ancestors, by the culture. There was a beautiful article in the New York Times when the DNA first started getting popular, maybe around 20 years ago, that talked about finding your ancestry in your family culture, the traditions, the ways, the things that we wouldn't ordinarily think much about, like in particular, the practices with the babies. That really comes up because the only way we know about raising babies is the way we were raised ourselves. And the babies also are so connected. They will, in my family, we would actually call each other with a lot of names, a lot of nicknames that turned out to be sometimes Salagi, which is what the federal government calls Cherokee on the reservation. But we're the people who resisted both removal on the Trail of Tears and the reservation the federal government calls Cherokee by hiding in these mountains. So we weren't allowed to speak our language, but the children would come up with these names for each other that sounded like baby talk. And it was baby talk, but it was very related to the ancient languages and the original translations that I was able to learn later in my life after the Religious Freedoms Act. So I'm curious if this reaches into the European and other continents in the form of the Neanderthal culture, which is very much aligned with the ancient cultures on this continent. And it also ties into the anthropologist and the archaeologist and the DNA findings. So our myths say that we came from the stars. And that sounds like we landed wherever we chose to, instead of the current theory that we all originated in Africa and started walking around on the flat earth, dodging glaciers and ice ages and things like that. So just like we're going to the moon right now because we've trashed this planet so much, we're looking for another place to survive. We go out into the universe now that we have access to the universe, and this is not brand new technology. There's evidence in our myths that humans actually originated somewhere else in the universe and came to this earth. For example, one place is the Serpent Mounds in the Ohio Mississippi Valley, and that's why the serpent effigy was created there, to honor this coming in of a huge meteorite that left a crater, and the serpent mound is on the edge of that crater, kind of a naturally occurring indication on the earth of the magic that took place there. And there are 4 of those sites. One is off of the pyramid of Chichen Itza in Mexico under the ocean. Another is in Canada and has, in the last few years, been closed to the public. I don't know what that's about. But the 4th is in Scotland. And you can find this evidence in ancient-origins.net. There's quite a few links to some different articles tying into these facts that are backed up with archaeology and anthropology and myths. Myths in the Jungian practices are specific to a culture. And the problem with this industrial revolution that we're in right now is that we're following the myth of the hero, which focuses on the individualism instead of individuation, and it's immersed in hierarchy and competition, and it's dominated by warrior mentality that is our dominance culture, as opposed to the original instructions that looked for a person's specific gift and cultivated that as equally value, because it takes every gift to help us evolve and survive on this planet, you know? And hierarchy is like saying, which of our 10 fingers is the best? Is it the thumb that makes us so unique, or what would the thumb be without all the rest of the fingers, So hierarchy is a big part of the problem in dominion over all on the earth that has gotten us to this point of not being able to breathe and drink the water like we did at one time. When I was growing up, we could drink the water wherever we went, just about any stream. If we were close to the spring, we'd just scoop it up in our hand and drink it very naturally, and no problems until the 70s and 80s. And then we started to to see people getting sick from the things that were in the water. So I really would love for us to return to that condition on the earth where the water was so clean and we lived in such natural ways without all of these chemicals and all of these ridiculous things that we think are going to be a solution that's going to help us make life easier in this crazy, crazy culture that we're living in. And hopefully we can find a new myth. Carl Jung said that the best hope for the Western man was to find a new myth beyond the hero's myth that focuses on one person and how much better they are than everyone else. And return to some of the ancient myths. And we have a new culture because we are so easily able to reach out and communicate in this way with everyone all over the world. We actually have so much in common when we come together. My last gathering in guided ritual transformation dances was so many different countries represented that I couldn't even count or keep up with all of them. And it was beautiful to be there together in that way and to all talk with each other and share our common ritual experience of dancing together. And we do this every month on the 13th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on Zoom. And we're so happy to have people join us. And this is part of our coming together, our reuniting as nations. And so I hope that all of you will join us in this curiosity and reach back as far as you can with your own cultural ways that you recognize as being a little different. It's hard to recognize that they are a little different until you're around other people and go into those little differences and really explore them. Maybe find some other people who have similar cultural ways or have more experience of the search for the origin of these ways, or see them as being helpful beyond the industrial revolution that we've been living in, helpful in uniting us again as common people on this path that we came here for, to find our own gifts, to equally value them, and to share them in the creation of a new worldwide culture where we all reach back to this beginning of this wave of humans, where we can share our ancestors in the original spiritual teachings that were without hierarchy, without patriarchy, without duality, that didn't go beyond reconciliation of opposites. True energy is created when we reconcile the opposites. And so that's the coming together. That's the both and the neither nor that reconciles the conflict or the conflicting energy that's created in duality and the oppositions, and moves beyond it, moves into transcendence of a lot of our human limitations, and comes back around to surviving as part of the earth. And here's a boop for everybody from my little coyote red wolf foxy dog. I don't know how well you can see him. He's happy to share his boops. Just the way foxies unite and relate. They rub faces and touch noses so gently. So I'd love for everyone who can to bring any information they can find into our sharing on Union of Nations or into my specific sharing on Tuesday afternoons at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the gathering room that Shonda so graciously provides to keep us all connected. And I don't know if Keith can drop a link, or you can come on to Facebook and find us there, find the gathering room, or find the Facebook group page for Union of Nations, or find us directly. Leave us a comment on guided ritual transformation dances on YouTube, or my own personal YouTube songs that come to me in the dream time. And these are the ways that my ancestors bring the teachings back. They bring back the original instructions in these songs, because songs come in dreams when they can help us heal. And we all need to heal in some way, along with the earth, the air, and the water, and change the fire of the actions in our heart. So find a way to come in and join us in this curiosity about uniting again as nations of people in this wave of humans where we all share ancestors. And thank you so much, Keith, for making this recording and for this opportunity to talk about these fascinating things that are available to us now that we can reach each other all over the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Kel. Thank you so much. Excuse the background here.
Yeah, that's okay. Our technology.
Indeed. Well, basically, if people go to your Gmail and ask for the link, I think they can get it there. I didn't have time to go find it here, but
Good.
yeah.
That'll
Or
work. Yeah.
look on Facebook. Yeah, we can definitely get the link out to them to come in on. This is Tuesday. Yes.
Tuesday afternoons. Yeah. Or any information that anyone wants to pass along and join in this curiosity that we're stepping into to unite us again as one wave of humans in the spiritual teachings that we originally came in with. Everyone is welcome to join. Everyone is equal to bring their own gifts and very needed at this time. And you have some beautiful gifts, Keith. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
this technology that you provide to make these recordings and all that you do with Mother Earth Network.
Thank you, Kel. I appreciate your knowledge and your wisdom, hon. Thank you so much.
Thank you too, Keith. Until again.
Yes,
Don't
indeed.
talk about
Blessings.